Most people could see the dominant Pokemon of Regulation F coming from pretty far away. Flutter Mane, she's been ruling Generation 9 this whole time. Urshifu, broken, obviously. Incineroar, always has been, always will be. Glimmora, though? After it was all but absent through Regulations D and E, Glimmora has become a key part of the Regulation F meta. According to LabMouse, Glimmora has been appearing on roughly 10% of teams, and it even has a role on the most broadly successful teams of the format so far. These 6 may not have the 2 regional wins that myself and Antonio Sanchez pulled off with this set of 6 at consecutive regionals earlier this year, but in terms of the sheer number of players who have placed in the top 32, this Glimmora team has been by far the most prominent. This team includes some of Regulation F's more obvious calls, Pokemon that were excellent in prior regulations like Flutter Mane, Urshifu, Tornadus, and Ogerpon Wellspring. But how did Glimmora get here, and why does it fit so well into this new and extremely powerful metagame? Glimmora had some shining moments in Regulation 9's pre-DLC era. According to Limitless, it made 16 regional top 8s in the first 3 regulations of Scarlet and Violet's VGC, the era before Pokemon Home opened the floodgates and completely changed the meta. At its best, Glimmora is one of the most common teammates for the powerful combination of Dondozo and Tatsugiri. Its ability to rack up poison through its unique move Mortal Spin, as well as its Toxic Debris ability, make it the perfect enabler of the Demon Fish. Defensive Dondozo loves stalling out poisoned opponents with its boosted defenses and moves like Rest. Offensive Dondozo loved that even one Toxic Spike could be enough to turn its Wave Crashes and Earthquakes into killing blows, and every team loved Glimmora's power as a special attacker. At the first regional in San Diego, Emilio Forbes teamed it up with Dondozo, Tatsugiri, Meowscarada, Talonflame, and Sylveon for an offensive team that leveraged its Toxic Spikes to enable the many terrifying sweepers on the team, including Glimmora itself with its choice specs. Dondozo was by far the most common teammate for Glimmora, but it enabled a few other team structures as well. The Liverpool Regional 2 weeks after San Diego featured Glimmora's best placings of Regulation A, a pair of top 4 finishes. The first player used a team similar to Emilio's with Dondozo, Meowscarada, and Glimmora. They added Goldango and the most unique pick, Tauros Paldea's Blaze form with Will-O-Wisp and Mirror Herb, a Pokemon tailor-made to handle all the Kingambits running amok. The other top 4 finish went to Francesco Pardini, with a completely different composition. This team used Glimmora to enable a couple of different modes. It had a Focus Sash to all but guarantee it would get Toxic Debris up, which could help its offensive mode with Dragonite or Dragapult Sweep, or help defensive monsters Garganacl and Gastrodon stall out foes. Regulation B saw more players see success teaming Glimmora up with Dondozo and Tatsugiri. Zachary Thornburg placed top 8 with a team including unique calls in Ceruledge and Sylveon. Those 2 placings tied Emilio Forbes' Orlando Regional squad for the top Glimmora result of Regulation B. No Dondozo necessary for Emilio this time, who used the Specs variant as part of a Tailwind Hyper Offense team that went 10-0 in Swiss at Regulation B's first tournament, then the largest offline tournament in Pokemon history. Not even the introduction of the Ruinous Quartet could shut down this, whatever it is. The Coned Flower Pokemon? Sure. Anyway, Glimmora didn't love having another strong ground type in Ting-Lu to deal with, but it had synergy with all 4 of these newly legal legendaries. In fact, it would end up making the top 8 with each one at least once throughout Regulation C. Down under in Melbourne, Australia, Glimmora took 2 spots in the first top 8 of Regulation C. Alistair Sandover paired Glimmora's Mortal Spin with Arcanine and Wo Chen, whose anti-physical attacking abilities allowed him to stall out some of the most vicious threats of Regulation C, like the demons of the new meta, Chien-Pao and Dragonite. Megan Rattle took that concept one step further, adding Fissure Ting-Lu to her squad, a combination that ensured her opponents had to get her Pokemon off the field fast, or else terrible things would happen. As good as it can be on defensive teams, Glimmora and its combination of poison and solid special attack also made offense like the Chien-Pao and Dragonite combination that much more threatening. Maybe your Pokemon could take one of those supercharged Terra Normal extreme speeds at 100% health, but at 88% health after a turn of poison? Good luck. Lev Willie used this combination, as well as the old standbys of Dondozo and Tatsugiri, to place top 8 at Fort Wayne, Regulation C's North American debut. And then there's Glimora's most common partner of the new Dark Legendaries, Chi-Yu. This adorable little guy and its Beads of Ruin ability allowed Glimmora to deal huge damage with moves like Power Gem and Earth Power without requiring it to limit itself with the Choice Specs item that offensive Glimmora builds had previously relied on. Alexander DeAndre and Joan Perello, who still can say they earned Glimmora's best result at an international championship. On June 3rd, 2023 at Milwaukee Regionals, Glimmora had another great weekend. 4 players made top 32 with it, and 2 made top 8. Zishuo Ding did it with a familiar Regulation C composition, teaming it up with Chi-Yu and Dondozo. Rushil Thacker brought Glimmora with a Pokemon that hadn't seen much play since Regulation B, Palmot, which could use its Fake Out and Fast Revival Blessing to be the perfect support for Dondozo. Both trainers would lose in the first round of Top Cut. We couldn't know it at the time, but it would be the last time we see Glimmora that deep in a tournament for quite a while. Glimmora was shut out of the top 8 at the final event of Regulation C, Fresno Regionals and the North American International Championships, despite the best efforts of Joseph Selmer. He finished top 16 and top 64 at those events respectively, doing his best with the defensive squad featuring Wo Chen. Next was World, which was to be played on the brand new Regulation D, with the many broken transfer Pokemon now legal. Let's just scroll down the list and see how Glimmora did. Ah, there it is. Kevin Salvetto was the only Glimmora player in all of day 2, and he would go out at 109th. That would be a sign of things to come for Glimmora in the post-Pokemon Home metagame. Glimmora didn't go extinct or anything in Regulation E, but after appearing at least once in just about every top 8 since official competition started for this game, Glimmora made top 8 just twice in Regulation E. That was thanks to Miguel Paquette at Lille Regionals and Daniel Walker at Brisbane Regionals. And it wasn't like the Glimmora players were falling just outside of top 8. There were never more than 4 Glimmora players in a day 2 out of the 9 events that made up Regulation E. Worse, Glimmora failed to make day 2 at all at 3 events, including the Latin American International Championships. The biggest addition of Regulation F and the Indigo Disc DLC was the new Pokemon. New Paradox monsters like Raging Bolt and Gouging Fire and Iron Crown looked like potential meta threats, and that potential has definitely been realized. And of course, many anticipated, or dreaded depending on who you ask, the return of Incineroar and other old Pokemon through this new Pokedex. But this DLC also brought some new TMs with it. The downfall for a lot of rock types is a simple problem. Most rock moves that aren't named Rock Slide aren't very good. At least Power Gem is 100% accurate, but at only 80 base power, it leaves a little left to be desired. Glimmora was lacking a rock type move that let it really unleash the power of its base 130 special attack. The arrival of TM 220 in the Indigo Disc was the perfect answer to this dilemma. Not counting special cases like Z moves or max moves, Meteor Beam became just the 3rd special rock move in Pokemon history, joining the aforementioned Power Gem and Ancient Power. Ancient Power is another fully accurate move with a potentially amazing secondary effect of a 10% chance of boosting all stats, but its 60 base power just hasn't proven strong enough for high level VGC play unless you really badly need rock coverage. Think Charizard using it in Generation 8 so it could use Max Rockfall to take out opposing Charizards. Meteor Beam killed 2 birds with one very large stone from outer space for Glimmora. Players trying to get the most out of its special attack stat used to have to use Choice Specs, and that cost it a lot of utility. It meant that it couldn't use Spiky Shield in front of ground types, and usually it meant they couldn't get poisons off with Mortal Spin. Meteor Beam is normally a 2-turn move, where the first turn grants a special attack boost to the user, and the second turn unleashes the massive 120 base power attack. Slapping a Power Herb on Glimmora gives it the power boost of the Choice Specs while allowing it the freedom to pick moves like Earth Power, Sludge Bomb, Energy Ball, Mortal Spin, or Spiky Shield for the rest of the game. In the first 6 events of Regulation F, Glimmora appeared in Day 2 35 times, an average of just under 6 per event. More impressively, every single top 8 included at least one Glimmora, and it also earned its highest placing ever at a regional, a 2nd place at Portland thanks to Chuppa Cross. As many trainers had before, Chuppa was using Glimmora to support a Dondozo and Tatsugiri team that looked a lot like some of Regulation C's best Dondozo teams, with Chenpao and Dragonite providing extremely quick offense. The new wrinkle was Ogre Pond's standard form, With the Covert Cloak and the speed boost from its post-terrestrialization and body aspect ability, Ogerpon could outrun most of the meta and gave Chuppa a perfect answer to fake-out users like Rillaboom and Incineroar, the latter of which hated dealing with Chuppa's Ogerpon's combination of Defiant and Superpower. Chuppa's Glimmora showed how Meteor Beam Glimmora could perfectly meld the two styles it had used to great success in the first 3 regulations of the generation. Meteor Beam allowed it to decimate any of those pesky flying types that would be able to avoid Dondozo's Earthquake. But against bulkier opponents, Glimmora could play an immensely annoying supporting role, chipping away with Spiky Shield and spreading poison with Mortal Spin. This game from the top 4 round at Portland was a perfect illustration of the pressure this Glimmora set puts on the opponent. Colin Hire, Chuppa's opponent, took a smart approach into the Glimmora lead, opting to protect with both of his Pokemon on turn 1. He recognized the threat of Meteor Beam. With the Power Herb consumed, Meteor Beam would now take 2 turns to fire for the rest of the game, taking that option pretty much off the table for Chuppa. And despite that play, Chuppa's Glimmora wound up as the clear MVP of this game. It's a perfect illustration of the value of the Power Herb set because a Choice Specs Glimmora would never have been able to do what Chuppa's did next. On the next turn, Chuppa's Glimmora was fast enough to outspeed Colin's Ogerpon, and took a clean 1-hit KO with Sludge Bomb. Glimmora wouldn't last much longer in this battle, but it didn't matter at this point. It had done its job, setting up Dondozo to get in, get its boost from Tatsugiri, and finish off the battle. In the decisive Game 3 that sent Chuppa to the finals, Glimmora took another KO and also dropped a critically important Toxic Spike that stopped any chance of a comeback from Colin's Ogerpon. Regulation F Glimmora has proven useful beyond support for Dondozo teams, which should come as no surprise given the copious amounts of terrifying sweepers available to trainers in Generation 9's full Pokedex. Stephen Mia's top 8 squad at Charlotte used Glimmora's power and Toxic Spikes to support Focus Sash Urshifu Single Strike and Choice Specs Chi-Yu. Similar structures were used to make top 8s by Aurelian Sola at Liverpool, Nicholas Kahn at Melbourne, Kyle Livinghouse at Knoxville, and most recently at the time of recording, Ryan Gwezi at Utrecht. Fevzi Ozkan provided the slightest of mix-ups in his top 8 squad at Dortmund, replacing Chi-Yu with Entei, putting black glasses on Urshifu and moving the Focus Sash to a more offensive-minded Flutter Mane. Regardless of the team structure, the point stands. Thanks to the combination of flexibility and power provided by Power Herb Meteor Beam, Glimmora is absolutely 100% back. It just goes to show, sometimes one move can make all the difference.
It's slower, or faster, aka slower. The Meteor Beam gets off from the Glimmora. It goes off. It will get the special attack boost. Glimmora raising its special attack, consuming the Power Herb. Firing the Meteor Beam, hits the Gouging Fire. That's a one-hit KO. Gouging Fire is down. Trick Room is down.